Another analyst froze mid-step. And then the words no one expected to hear in the Yu Menglong case finally echoed through the room. We have a DNA match. If you've been following the mystery surrounding Yu Menglong's shocking death on September 11, 2025, then you already know nothing about this case has been simple. Nothing has been clean. And definitely nothing has been fully explained. But today, we're diving into the chilling forensic discovery that has fans, investigators, and insiders asking one terrifying question. Was Yu Menglong's death really what authorities first claimed? Stick with me, because in this video you're going to uncover what forensic experts reportedly found at the scene, why this new DNA evidence is causing fresh controversy, the timeline detail that doesn't add up, and the theory fans are now whispering about online. By the end, you'll understand why this case refuses to stay buried, and why the truth might be closer than anyone expected. Let's get into it. From the very beginning, Yu Menglong's passing on September 11, 2025 sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Known for his warm smile, gentle personality, and steadily rising career, Yu Menglong was never the kind of star surrounded by scandal. That's what made the news hit even harder. Fans described the moment as surreal. Social media flooded within minutes. Tributes poured in from across the globe. But alongside the grief came confusion. Because the early reports felt, to many observers, incomplete. There were gaps. There were delays. And most importantly, there were questions. For weeks, the case appeared to move quietly behind closed doors. Officials released only limited information. Updates were brief, carefully worded, controlled. But behind the scenes, something far more intense was unfolding. According to insiders familiar with the investigation process, forensic teams conducted multiple rounds of evidence analysis from Yu Menglong's residence. Standard procedure, yes, but what they reportedly discovered during the second phase of testing would change the tone of the entire case. Trace DNA. Not just anywhere, but in a location investigators reportedly did not expect to find it. Sources claim the sample was initially flagged during a routine sweep, the kind of tiny detail that often gets overlooked until someone takes a second look. At first, it was treated as background contamination, until the system ran the comparison and hit. One forensic specialist, speaking anonymously in online discussions, described the moment as deeply unsettling. According to the account, the lab reportedly reran the test multiple times to rule out error. Each time, the same result. A consistent foreign DNA profile present within the scene environment. Now, to be clear, the presence of DNA alone does not automatically prove wrongdoing. Experts always caution that context is everything. People visit homes. Items are shared. Cross-contact happens. But here's where the tension begins to rise. Because according to timeline discussions circulating among observers, the individual allegedly connected to the DNA was not publicly known to have been present at Yu Menglong's residence around the time of his death. And that's the detail that has ignited fresh speculation. Fans online quickly began piecing together fragments of the timeline. Old posts resurfaced. Event schedules were examined. Even past photos were scrutinized frame by frame. What they found only deepened the mystery. In the days leading up to September 11, Yu Menglong had reportedly maintained a relatively low public profile. No major public disputes. No visible distress signals. No obvious warning signs that something unusual was about to unfold. Friends described him as focused, calm, looking ahead to upcoming work. Which is why the forensic development, whether ultimately significant or not, has reopened emotional wounds for many supporters who never felt the story fully settled. And then came the second twist. According to circulating investigative chatter, the DNA sample reportedly underwent extended verification, a step usually reserved for findings investigators consider potentially important. Why? That question alone has fueled weeks of debate. Some observers believe it's simply thorough police work being misinterpreted by the public. Others argue that the extended testing suggests authorities wanted absolute certainty before deciding how to proceed. But what truly sent shockwaves through fan communities was the timing. Because the alleged forensic confirmation surfaced months after the initial reports of Yu Menglong's death, long after many assumed the case had gone quiet. Why revisit the evidence now? Why retest? Why double-check? Those questions remain at the center of the growing online storm. Inside fan forums and comment sections, emotions have been running high. Some fans are urging patience and trust in official procedures. Others are calling for greater transparency, arguing that unanswered questions only fuel speculation. One longtime supporter wrote, "We don't want rumors. We just want clarity." And that sentiment has been echoing louder with each passing week. Adding another layer of intrigue is the reported location of the DNA trace. While exact details have not been officially confirmed publicly, discussions among observers suggest it was found in an area considered personally significant within the residence. If accurate, that detail could explain why forensic teams reportedly took the extra step of verification. Again, and this is important, none of this alone confirms foul play. Forensic science is complex. Context matters. Investigations often uncover unexpected traces that ultimately have ordinary explanations. But in high-profile cases, even small anomalies can take on enormous emotional weight. Especially when the person at the center of the story is someone as widely admired as Yu Menglong. Meanwhile, industry insiders have remained largely quiet. Few public figures have commented directly on the forensic rumors. Most statements continue to focus on honoring Yu Menglong's memory rather than engaging in speculation. Still, the questions persist. And the internet never forgets. Recently, eagle-eyed fans noticed renewed activity in discussions surrounding archived case details. Old interviews are being rewatched. Past schedules are being cross-referenced. Every small piece of information is being examined under a microscope. It's the kind of digital detective work that often emerges when communities feel a story is unfinished. Whether the DNA finding ultimately proves significant or turns out to have an ordinary explanation, one thing is already clear. The Yu Menglong case continues to grip public attention in a powerful way. Because at its heart, this isn't just about forensic reports or investigative timelines. It's about closure. It's about truth. And for many fans, it's about honoring someone whose sudden loss still feels deeply personal. As of now, no definitive public conclusion has been announced tying the DNA discovery to any confirmed wrongdoing. Investigations, when active, often move carefully and quietly, and not every forensic lead changes the final outcome. But the mere possibility of new evidence has ensured one thing. This story is far from forgotten. And if history has taught us anything about high-profile cases, it's that sometimes the smallest detail, the tiniest trace, can reopen the biggest questions. So what do you think? Is this forensic development a meaningful breakthrough? Or simply a misunderstood piece of routine evidence? Most people thought this phase of the work was routine. It wasn't. Because what happened during this round of forensic review would quietly shift the energy inside the investigation and eventually send ripples through the entire online community watching the case unfold. The technician assigned to the reanalysis reportedly wasn't expecting anything unusual. By this point, the primary evidence had already been processed once. Procedures were followed. Reports were filed. The case, from the outside, appeared to be moving toward closure. But forensic science has a way of revealing things only to those patient enough to look twice. According to discussions circulating among observers familiar with investigative workflows, the second sweep of trace materials was part of an extended verification process, the kind teams sometimes perform when cases carry high public sensitivity. And the Yu Menglong case was exactly that. High profile. Emotionally charged. Under a microscope. The analyst reportedly began with standard protocol: isolate, amplify, compare. Normal steps. Expected results. Until the software flagged something. At first, it was subtle, just a small alert in the system. The kind of notification that appears often and usually turns out to be nothing more than background noise. But this time, it didn't clear. The sample showed a partial foreign DNA profile. Not strong enough initially to trigger alarm. But not weak enough to ignore. So they ran it again. This is where the tension in the room reportedly began to build. Because in forensic work, repetition is everything. A single reading can mislead. Contamination can happen. Machines can hiccup. But when a result repeats cleanly, investigators start paying attention. And according to the circulating accounts, the second run produced the same pattern. Consistent. Traceable. Present. At that point, the atmosphere in the lab reportedly shifted. What had started as routine verification quietly became something else. Something heavier. The sample was reportedly sent for deeper amplification, a more sensitive process designed to pull clearer genetic markers from minimal material. This step isn't used lightly. It takes time. It takes resources. And it usually means someone believes the trace is worth a closer look. When the enhanced profile came back, insiders claim the match confidence improved. Still trace level. Still requiring context. But clearer. And that's the moment many observers now point to as the turning point in part one of this unfolding mystery. Because from that point forward, the conversation inside investigative circles reportedly changed from, "Is this noise?" to, "Who does this belong to?" Now, here's where things get even more gripping. Forensic experts always emphasize something crucial: DNA presence alone does not automatically indicate a crime. People leave genetic traces everywhere. On shared surfaces. On borrowed items. Through completely ordinary contact. But what made this discovery so unsettling to those following the case was the reported placement of the trace. According to online investigative chatter, the DNA was allegedly recovered from an area not typically associated with casual or distant contact. And that detail, whether ultimately significant or not, is what lit the fuse across fan communities. Because placement changes everything. If a trace is found on a commonly touched surface, explanations are easy. Everyday. Innocent. But when a trace appears somewhere more personal, questions multiply. Fast. Fans began revisiting everything. Old livestream clips of Yu Menglong were rewatched frame by frame. Past visitor lists were discussed in forums. Even routine schedule gaps were suddenly being treated like puzzle pieces waiting to be connected. And with every passing day, one emotional undercurrent kept rising to the surface. Many supporters never felt the story surrounding September 11, 2025 had fully settled in the first place. This forensic development, whether ultimately decisive or not, reopened that feeling in a powerful way. Meanwhile, those familiar with investigative procedure urged caution. Trace DNA can persist for long periods. Secondary transfer exists. Context matters more than raw presence. All true. All scientifically sound. But in the court of public emotion, especially when a beloved public figure is involved, technical nuance often struggles to keep pace with human instinct. And human instinct was now fully awake. What added even more intrigue was the reported timeline of the analysis itself. Observers noticed that the deeper DNA review appeared to occur well after the initial wave of case activity had quieted. That delay, while not unusual in complex investigations, became another focal point for online speculation. Why revisit the trace months later? Was it routine quality assurance? Or did something specific prompt the re-examination? As of now, there has been no publicly confirmed statement detailing the internal reasoning. But the question alone has kept discussion threads burning late into the night across multiple fan spaces. Inside those communities, emotions remain deeply mixed. Some fans continue to advocate for patience and trust in official processes, emphasizing that forensic reviews often uncover minor anomalies that ultimately lead nowhere significant. Others feel the discovery, even at trace level, reinforces their long-standing belief that the full picture of Yu Menglong's final days may still contain unanswered questions. One thing is undeniable. Interest in the case has not faded. If anything, the DNA development has breathed new life into conversations that many thought had gone quiet. And perhaps that's the most powerful part of this entire Part 1 development. Because sometimes in high-profile investigations, the biggest impact doesn't come from loud breakthroughs. It comes from the smallest confirmed detail. A microscopic trace. A repeated signal. A question that refuses to go away. Right now, what we have is a forensic breadcrumb, one that investigators reportedly took seriously enough to verify carefully. What it ultimately means remains the question hanging in the air. And that's exactly why this story continues to grip so many people. Because closure requires certainty. And certainty, in this case, still feels just out of reach. But I want to hear from you. Do you think this trace DNA discovery is a major turning point in the Yu Menglong case? Or could it simply be routine forensic noise that's being overanalyzed by the internet? Why do you think investigators reportedly chose to run deeper amplification on this sample? And most importantly, do you personally feel there are still unanswered questions surrounding September 11th, 2025? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all and your perspective genuinely matters to this discussion. If this deep dive pulled you in and kept you thinking, make sure you like the video, share it with other fans still following the case, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next explosive update. Your support helps keep these conversations alive, and in stories like this, every voice counts.